Hello and welcome to TFT World Cup final day, game number 1. Enjoy.
It is an overachievers. No matter what, we are going to be going into an accelerated pace of the game. And we've seen how much impact the Dragons and the Desperate Pleas of the world have had. But again, who knows, with the way people are able to maintain HP here, we could see the charm that costs a lot of HP and gives you a 3-star 5 because of welcome into the mix. It's going to show up sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. Overachievers, of course, going to be allowing those late-game charms to appear earlier in the game, and that can make all the difference. I mean, get ready for the Dragons, more Desperate Pleas, more fun, as you said. And if it comes through that we get that win-out condition, maybe it'll happen.
And speaking of Dragons, right, the one set where K3 Soju really rose above that influencer mode was in the Dragon Lands, right? So that is just a fun little point to kind of tie it all together here as well. Soju, one of the players that we are all looking out for.
All right, we have talked quite a lot about Vitality here, but I want to get more into the Wolves side of things. Definitely as underdog. We always talk about, Li Xiao, of course, has been a player who's been put in some very unusual positions here. You're flexible, of course. You're built different. He's done very well on both.
Yeah, I mean, Li Xiao definitely going to be one of the win-out players to look for on the side of Wolves. If he can find an augment that allows him to play that risky style, he has navigated those spots perfectly so far in this tournament, and there's no reason to expect that he can't continue to do so. And even taking a look at his board right now, he might have the position to go for the win-out as he's found the Syndra on this first stage of the game.
And again, just the frontline Syndra here in the PvE rounds is just a normal optimization to get those casts off as soon as possible. That one singular cast could be all the difference.
All right, we talked a little bit about Li Xiao, but let's talk about the other players on there. Shelty, of course, a very strong Syndra player to himself. From the, I guess YGQF is one of the players who has caught my attention as well. As being one of the players who is very heavy on the reroll style.
Yeah, heavy on the reroll, and every time he's seen Syndra, he's gone first, right? That was the stat that Clement called out on the desk, and that's what we have to watch out for in this early game. If YGQF finds that Syndra, is there the ability from Vitality to actually shut it down, contest, and send him towards a potential bottom 4?
All right, do you see 2 healthy coming in? We can see on the left-hand side, we've got ourselves a decent amount of Spellblade joining the field here. 3 different players slamming it in.
Yeah, and again, we had the game yesterday where we didn't see a single cast, and I don't think that will be the case here. We have seen so far both of these teams really also wanting to go down that multi-striker path as well. So really interesting to see what they will go here. Just overall, very strong selection.
Deja Vu picked up for Setsuko. As you said, here is some actual big direction. And another 2-cost reroll that we haven't seen much of, but it works, and it's very strong in the current meta.
It's just like, it's super, super circumstantial. You need to have the augment, you need to have the rage base to really ensure that, well, the Deja now, not necessarily the Galio, firing on all cylinders, but with this early Galio 2 and making Ecom, we should be set up for success.
I want to kind of open up the conversation here, since we've seen this so infrequently. We know, of course, Syndra on the very tippy top, the cast and the Kog'Maw definitely a step below. In terms of where does Deja as a composition slot into the current ladder of 2-cost comps?
I mean, it's still, of course, lower than Syndra, and maybe lower than like a capped out Kassadin board. I think the biggest scary thing about going for the Deja Vu is because a lot of the Syndra compositions actually like to reroll for Galio as well. So it's not even an uncontested 2-cost line. However, at least starting with the 2-star will help out a bit.
Just worth noting here, this actually is going to be a deja vu of the game plan that Setsuko has kind of been employing all throughout this tournament so far, right? Being that reroll line for most of this point as well, it seems like, right? And that's something that I'm going to be looking out for you again, because if he's able to play for that sick 5th spot here, he's going to have to do, he will have his job done so far. Again, he's the player with the lowest average placement on this team as well. Now, something you expect going into the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely, right? He's got the highest AVP over the last, like, 4 or 5 sets in North American competition, right? So the lowest AVP here is certainly something of a surprise. As we take a look at Toronto Tokyo's board, we see he's leaning towards the Kassadin. Already a Kassadin, a Bloodthirster slam. Got the Spellblade, certainly wants to go that direction. Gonna go in to another 2-cost reroll that won't be contesting the Galios. And the question is where do we have the Syndra contest from Vitality? They're certainly not going to ignore this champion. And
there we
looks
go.
like Milk will be the one. Ginsu's Rageblade already slammed on a Syndra, and that leaves Soju to play around 4 costs. We saw he took double down, is playing for as much gold as possible on the loss streak, full open fort. This is a really, really good opener for this team. 3 rerollers, Soju playing for a very good win out from scaling into a 4-cost comp.
And of course, we know there are only a few options to really double down on your loss streak. We don't what do you kind of feel what we got from the very early game here? Anyone you want to particularly bring to the spotlight as well?
I mean, I'm kind of just going to hammer on the point that Casanova kind of brought out here as well. Like, the fact we're going to go for the full open forward is one of the few ways you get enough gold to actively play around that 4-2 roll down. We saw Soju also be the player that opened up towards that Golden Quest previously as well. So that's something to keep in mind, that Golden Quest could come around 3-2 here, and if you're on a position where you're going double down, full open forward here, you're going to have so much gold to work with, you might even be able to hit it before 4-2.
That's actually such a great call out. I think if we can find that Golden Quest, these are the most optimal circumstances that you will ever find it, because that double down giving you so much additional gold. So we definitely have our eyes out for 3-2, but also eyes on this carousel. Bunch of spatulas.
Time for our first SPG check as well, boys. Here's
All right, what we got?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Syndras. So
5 Syndras,
both teams over 1 SPG.
All right, that means we're in for a good game, right? But as you're saying, Cass, with actually a very low priority beginning to these spatulas here, we know this does open up the possibility to go for some of these deeper verticals and maybe more opportunity to find win-outs.
Yeah, Shelty and Serene are the ones who end up with it. We'll see if Wolves can find any of those verticals, right? We saw kind of Fairy vertical, Portal vertical as kind of the main ones that have actually come out and had some big results.
Yeah, and 10 Portal really is that fantastically big cap out, but the issue is that most of the time you need to get either a Tactician's Crown, and then you also need to get 2, or you need to get it on a dummy, right? So it is really difficult to get 10 Portal online, but even just having a strong tempo game plan into something like the 8 Portal could be an absolutely strong way of bleeding out and then securing that top 4 for your team.
I'm kind of curious what Shelty decided to take that one there, especially considering that he is the player from the Wolves here who's on the win streak right now, so not slamming his second item in will go up against Etsuko and the Deja board. As you guys mentioned, it will be very strong later on, but for now, Shelty's looking real good, even without using all of his components.
Yeah, and Setsuko actually not able to find a bow, even though he was on the first pick on the carousel. I think that's going to hurt quite a bit. We were mentioning that Rage Blade being so important, so gonna have to wait kind of until either Krug's dropping a bow and getting fortunate there, or the stage 3 carousel, which certainly increases that amount of losses Setsuko will have to take. And he has to be the one to beat Soju here. He's not allowed to keep this 4-loss streak if Soju is in his pool and he hits him, because that would completely hamper Soju's game being on the double down. So Setsuko is going to have to sacrifice for his team if that ends up being the case.
Also worth noting, when you're playing these reroll lines, that 3-2 point is ever so important. You don't have that option of going for the secondary item here, because something like Magic Wand, for example, really opens up different lines in terms of being able to have that. If you had that open bow here, you can see now just, again, fully just sacrificing much possible here as well. It's worth noting here as well.
Oh, they are against each other.
This is very good for the HP management as well. If they're able to make sure that the first Galio here goes down before the Syndra dies, Soju will be able to kind of farm a little bit of cast, and then it would be amazing. But even then, yeah, that's absolutely the best case scenario here for Team Vitality, even though the streak of Setsuko is broken.
It's
Great teamwork.
good, but it's also terrible, right? Because Setsuko kind of needs this loss streak to continue. He needs the gold for the roll down, but he's forced to win here because the spot for Soju gets so much more blown up if he loses.
The only good news is that Milk, while it's not quite as dominant as Shelty through the early rounds, at least does mean they've got 1 loss streak and 1 win streak for our Vitality side. Over on the other side, of course, while we're seeing Shelty doing well, the Wolves, they don't have so much of a loss streak. YGQF is in the middle of the table right now with at least a good amount of cash in hand.
Here we go, resetting to the Krugs, see what can get picked up. I do want to see if we can spot Setsuko pick up a bow here, because that kind of fixes a little bit of the issues that were caused in this game. But outside of that, we definitely need some check-ins on the Wolves boards. I know we've seen kind of the spots for Vitality. We know we have these 3 rerolls. We have 1 person pushing for those 4 costs. And then on the other side, Shelty being so strong. There's the bow. Huge pickup. Very, very important. So at least we know Setsuko will have a little bit more flexibility on his 3-2 augment, not necessarily have to hunt for items.
Not the ideal reroll chum here. You would like the one that gives you all 2 costs instead of high the odds of finding that Galio, but let's see how we are going to approach this in Casanova. You're pointing something out here.
Yeah, let's just take a look here at the Wolves players, right? Lee Sao is going to be on that Syndra 2 healthy. On the other side, we've got a second Syndra player, YGQF, who has gone first every time he's played Syndra. And you look at the itemization, he's staying on Syndra in this game. We may have 2 players from the same team go for it, but we know that this can work out, right? Twisted Minds, 1.5 Syndra players per game on their team. You can have 1 player play at 2-star, the other potentially go for the 3-star.
Do want to take a second to recognize we see Setsuko release with the Galio starting to pick up a little bit of steam. That Grince's Rage Blade has been waiting for a while. We'll see if it's good enough to get Setsuko back in the saddle.
Right,
it's kind of a twofold fight
on this
as well.
reloss as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a twofold fight here because if Setsuko is able to win this fight now, he's going to have to invest very heavily in able to continue that win streak and might end up disrupting his own game plan all throughout this stage. And as you're pointing out as well, meanwhile, the Wolfsburg here is looking towards building up that logic. It's going to be double gold here again. So maybe if Soju gets that double down on offer here, this could be a big change for how the game will pan out.
Yeah, we're going to start to see these get rolled away. As Shelty is still on that full win streak. Defensive Art Stand United, big grab bag are the options for Soju on the other side. Serene having not today into Unified playing around Casted and multi-strikers. Not always what we see for this line, but both of them synergizing very, very well for this multi-strikers board.
Bear in mind, we've still got the Spatula unaccounted for. So some nice upgrades come in. Suddenly Edge of Night a little bit less popular, but I think I'm liking what we're seeing so far. I think having that extra get out of jail free card is very nice.
And the real interesting thing here is now going to be what is going to be the itemization for the attack speed for that Catherine. Right? No bows, no belts, no rod on the bench here. So who knows? We might not be able to find the National Tooth or the Rage Blade in time.
Do want to take note here that the Soju has now broken his loss streak. So now if he's going to make the most of doubling down, he's going to need to do it by getting the wins.
Well, he's gone to 7 on 3-2 and rolled a bit, found a Syndra 2 and a Wukong for the front line. So I do feel like he would be able to win a lot of fights. However, on the other side, Serene having this just very strong combat augment combination with the Caston 2 is just too much.
It's one of the massive key succession things for these reroll competitions. If you're able to get towards a stable point without having to invest into these econ augments and end up going with double combat power, you are going to be in such a strong position here. Again, Kazan 2, we've seen how much work this unit has been able to do all throughout the weekend. And here we see one of those Crown Guard slams, corner Cassidans we've been talking so much about as well as one of the day one optimizations that kind of we didn't see a lot of yesterday or in day 2. But a real big thing to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, you had mentioned the no attack speed item on the other Cassidon board, but this is another not today board. And they're just saying, Toronto's saying, you know what? Not today's enough attack speed. I don't need more attack speed on the Cassidon. We'll get it done with just this and use Spellblade, Crown Guard, have a little bit more burst.
Also worth noting right here, slammed the Morello onto the Ash here, playing full on tempo. No components barred here. Knows he has enough damage as well coming through with that Spellblade. Just need to ensure the uptime. Yeah,
Toronto certainly is in a good position to start moving ahead in the early part of this game as one of the front runners for Vitality. The unusual item setup. Seems like it's working so well so far. We can see Syndra is going to have trouble punching through. Edge of Night proccing means that we get the reset, and the Cassidon just walk through the board.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing the early game Cassidons with not today, the combat augments on both sides, right? Being able to handle the Syndras, of course. I mean, we're looking at the other side, and Martyr is like one of the combat augs. It's only level 6. It's not getting a ton of value versus what Toronto Tokyo has to offer. So we'll see that start to flip later on in the game, potentially.
Stage 3 Carousel here. Rise with a bow on offer, immediately taken away by Lee Sao here, but no karma. And also nothing else here. Again, we've seen Fiora really be a big part here. We've seen Rakan be a big part of these capped out boards all throughout the weekend, but this time around, not a priority pickup.
Yeah, and specifically, it was only one bow and no tears, and a lot of players angling towards Syndra. However, a lot of them already kind of had the itemization, so it probably won't hurt too bad. I think the big one that was a great pickup here, Soju, sword on Fiora. He was playing into the kind of these flexible 4-cost lines a couple of times. We saw him playing around a Fiora Callista flex. This time he's got AP items on a Syndra. Now he's found a Fiora with a sword to start itemizing. We may see kind of that Karma Fiora setup. Some of that Preservers and Warrior flex that we might see out of Soju later on in this game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Soju's been playing a different composition nearly every game. I think it's a very good illustration of how there is more to him than first appears.
Worth noting is that we were talking about the key factor of the items on this Dacia board, right? And Setsuko's secondary augment here has been that Pandora's items here, so we'll now be able to just get best in slot on every single unit that he wants.
And he's finding 7 Gallios before the rest of the lobby has really put together a ton of them. One of the advantages is even though there's a lot of Syndra players in the lobby, he knows that his teammates can kind of avoid the Gallios and let him get there. And when he looks at the rest of the Wolves players, they don't have a ton yet.
As worth noting right now when he is running that double Gallio, so that it's only the strongest Gallio that gets the effect from the augment, so that other Gallio without the items still provides that strong disruption we know from the Gallio in the front lines for the likes of that center board normally.
I was kind of curious to see how these end of rounds would play out here, but something with double Gwynsu's, we're building up a good head of steam. Setsuko has spent quite a lot of money to get to this point, but he's very close to taking up Lushao, though. You called it before, Cass. We will see the Gallios being scooped out at least partially from the pool.
Yeah, I mean, Lisao already having 2 of them, and we see this composition from Lisao having the early Syndra 2, having a front line that's pretty strong, and combat augments with 2 healthy and combat caster, but being on a 5-loss streak. A lot of gold to work with, but certainly not the position you'd want to be with these augments. You'd want to be playing from tempo.
And also according to the overlay here, right, neither Shelty nor Soju have spent any gold on rolling so far this game, so that is to kind of speak to the fact that, like, again, Shelty here in the middle of the pack has been able to maintain very well. Soju, even with the double down here, all that extra gold has been going in towards the EXP instead.
Yeah, and that spatula did go towards a portal emblem, so we'll have to be watching towards Shelty for whether he goes up to 8 portal, or if we see an out on 4-2 from some kind of augment that allows him to reach potentially towards 10.
Yeah, I want to take a sort of temperature check on Portal, on the Portal line in the tournament overall. Certainly coming into this one, it wasn't one which was front running on top of our radars, but of course, Fnatic showed us what Rise could be capable of. Didn't quite work out. Wheater, are you high on the trait in general?
I think it's a composition that becomes a lot better once you have that emblem, because then you can start flexing some of those traits that normally are like very peripheral and very difficult to get in unless you get towards that level 8, level 9, level 10 aspect of it, right? You're able to make like Portal Calm if you really need to, get the encounters in there, get some extra skulls in the mix here. Having just actually even a single emblem just frees up so much of the real estate on the board.
We look at Shelty and Soju. You called out neither of them have spent gold on rolls, but they're step in step. 67 HP each, both on a current streak. Both of them just 10 gold separating each other. Level 7, looking to push to that fast 8 and start to roll for the 4 cost. Both of them playing around the 4 cost for their team, but there's a lot of reroll left in the lobby.
Looking at the lobby overall, we can see it's a pretty even split between our teams. We're dancing hand in hand up and down the table for Wolves and Vitality. Nobody taking the big step forward. Of course, Serene has that big win streak, so perhaps that could change soon.
Yeah, and for these 4-2 augments here will be incredibly important. Also worth noting, right, with the overachievers being the portal here, Casanova, this is about stage 4 where it becomes super, super impactful.
Yeah, 100%. We'll have to see what starts to get picked up. And then does that stop players from leveling up as quickly? Do they start rolling for some of these charms because there's just so much more impactful earlier on in the game? Does that kind of cap people at level 8 instead of actually pushing to level 9, pushing to level 10? I mean, we haven't seen much in general. We jump on board with Setsu going up against Toronto Tokyo. And this time he's got the Deja immediately onto the Kassadin, but we just see the power of the sustain and the not today. I mean, it's just so much for the Kassadin.
Yeah, third item, Giant Slayer coming in, still not good enough. So we are in the land of more unusually itemized Kassadins than before, but they seem to be working pretty well, and we're moving towards the higher levels as well, seeing the Callistas coming through to the compositions as well.
And here it comes. The 4-2 run will be a triple gold now, so no real massive swings in the tempo for higher or lower here, but will be that Preserver crest here for the likes of K3 Soju. As we were talking about.
And we've got, that's looking real good here. I mean, this is exactly what you were hoping for Soju, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to play the Warrior Preservers. He finds a Gwen. He immediately finds Fiora 2. He finds a Karma. I mean, this is everything that you want to start things out. The Preserver +1 is just going to help elevate this board even further. This is exactly where Soju wants to be. This has exactly been the comfort zone of the entire tournament for K3 Soju.
Exactly right. These four cost flexible boards have been what he's really been actually making his name on in this tournament so far, as you're pointing out. And one of the reasons why he has been that all-star player for Team Vitality, though. However, it's still just a singular item Fiora at the moment. The Preserver on the Nasus here will obviously be absolutely huge, but again, once he goes level 9, he finds his Bat Queen for the Bat Chest King, and then we will start working towards that.
Well, let's start talking about here, because Preserver Warrior has definitely been one of those compositions that has been putting out better performances. How does it match up into the Syndra, which we're seeing absolutely everywhere?
You can find certain positioning to get the Fiora towards that backline, get on the Syndra, as you see here, nearly taking her out from the cast. If that's a 3-item Fiora, she might have just one-tapped this Syndra too. And that will just win you so many fights. Soju narrowly losing this one against YGQF. And I think that Soju just needs to find a couple more items for this Fiora, and then we have to watch his positioning in those late-game fights.
There's a little bit of a panic starting to kind of settle in here now when you're looking at the overall lobby situation, right? Because we're talking about how Setsuga found 7 Gallios for a while, but he's not hitting because on the bench, we do see 6 copies of Gallios chilling alongside that Kassadin free being found on the board as well.
Serene trying to carry his team in this one, holding the Gallios away from Setsi, trying to send him to an 8th, finds the Kassadin and finds press the attack as the 4-2 augment to go with 2 combat augs already. You said hitting without any econ augs is a huge way to cap out the board. How about 3 combat augments, including the best in slot 1 and 4-2?
This might be the best in slot setup, like bar maybe keepers, right? We're looking at this setup in general here. And also, again, this like really rubbing in for Setsuko right now. He's looking over outside the field. He sees all of his Galio's on your position spent alongside that Kassadin free.
Oh boy, yeah, it's going to really hurt because, of course, Serene has got a ton of HP left. The idea of even taking him out of the game is just not going to happen. In fact, Setsuko is much more likely to go out of the game before Serene will.
Yeah, it does seem like Setsi is going to free fall towards an 8th, which means we have to see a big performance from Soju, Toronto, Tokyo, and Milk. They need to be able to play for that first, try and get 3 members into that top 4 to guarantee the win, or even there, just get the first to make up for the 8th in the spot.
And with Setsuko, for Soju, sorry, with having that open bow on the Fiora right now, that Chainless becomes his only option on this carousel. Needs to get that Titan's Resolve into the mix here, so providing even more survivability for the Fiora. And I feel like that's another real contested point all throughout the weekend. What is actually the most useful items in Fiora? Because I know people are building her full-on assassin. Sometimes people are building her like just as a bruiser. And this time around, we see Soju going much more down the bruiser line.
I don't hate it at all, considering we've got so much Preserver in the mix as well to try and keep Fiora around and on the field for a little bit longer. But as you're saying, Cass, it does feel such a high-risk proposition. You know, you're throwing her into the back of the opposing team. She could just get blown up.
Yeah, 100%, but I love your point about the extra preservers, right? You got the extra preserver emblem, trying to play that more bruiser style, and then play around the Karma, who's going to take these Syndra items later on as you continue to level up this board. I think that's a great way to play around this, and Soju needs to just continue to find more of those preservers. He's trying to roll a little bit, but he doesn't want to roll too much because he wants to keep level 9 open.
You guys see here on the other side for TT, right? He's currently rocking that Kalista 2 in the backline here. Gave up on that Kassadin free with this multi-striker line, but now he's stuck playing with the Morellonomicon on Nicholas. Obviously, he's a great applicant of it, but he would have much preferred the red buff, and there was no time to greet that out for him early in the game.
Yeah, great that he's hit the 2-star at the very least. That's going to level up Toronto Tokyo's board, try and play for that top 4.
That's my intake of wrestling. Setsuko losing out again. It doesn't feel like there's a ton of options left in the tank for him here, as Shelty continues to get stronger. A second Portal Emblem joins the mix.
And this is going to be incredibly huge. He has the 2 items on the Rise, including the anti-heal, a very critical component of Rise's damage output. It's his effectiveness of hitting pretty much the entire board when he launches his ability out there. And now it's going to be a question of, can you get towards that level 10? He should be stable enough with the Rise 2, with the front, and with the Portal 2, with the Taric 2 as well. There should be more than enough with 8 Portal here, playing a good board around that, and just hitting those intervals and then getting to level 10 and capping out with the 10 portals.
Yeah, if he can go 10, but also with Overachievers, potentially you can find a Xerath, maybe find the Chariot, be able to actually level up even quicker. He has so much gold in the bank. If he can get that online, get those cheaper level up costs, maybe he can make it all the way to 10 and get the 10 portal there.
Setsuko on his last legs here, runs into Soju, and Soju shows exactly what the Fiora can do for you. I think at this point, Setsuko knew his time was up in this game anyway.
I actually think at this point, trying to keep him alive doesn't make any sense. I think it's totally okay. Soju runs into him. It's like, all right, Setsuko got kind of bodied by this roll down from Serene, finding 6 Galios, other players holding him. Setsuko, I think, played correctly. He rolled very early. He found 7 copies. He needed to just find 2 more, and they just didn't show up. Now you have to cut your losses, send Setsuko 8th, and then try and play for the rest of the team.
And while this isn't necessarily a complete kind of mirror of the situation that Setsuko found himself in his Global Championship Top 8 match back in the day here, he did open that up with a bunch of Top 8s and then had to play a very different style here. They need to ensure that Setsuko doesn't shut down, doesn't get faced by this 8th here in case for him to still be a valuable part of this team and contribute in the next coming games.
Of course, the mental aspect is going to be hugely important. Remember, Vitality have not lost a game in this tournament. We don't know what happens if that first loss does come through.
Do you want a belt off of this anvil for Soju, Cass? I feel like that's kind of going to be one of the things you want him, maybe for that Stair Skate here. Could also just go for the double BT, but Stair Skate here. This was the commonly agreed best in slot for Fiora in the Warrior Preserver line at the beginning of the set. Makes her so durable alongside all that Preserver coming through.
Yeah, belt's a great call out there, and he finds it, which is massive for Soju, being able to get kind of this best in slot online. He is trying to go 9. We see him saved up a lot of gold. He's going to try and get as many vertical preservers as he can. As you said, the Bat Queen for the Bat Chest King, trying to find that Morgana. See if Soju can get it, because he recognizes he has to play for win out. He can't just play for a very good board here. I think I would rather see Soju go 7th than not play for a top 1.
And I think it's also worth noting here about the way Toronto's kind of started building this board out. He has removed the ferry from the equation here on the Kalista, wants a proper third item here because of the fact that this Morello Nomicon isn't going to do enough work on its own.
Yeah, Toronto takes the L. I mean, for both Milk and Toronto, you can see kind of floundering a little bit in the mid-table as the Xiao picks up a third win in a row.
Quick call out. Toronto actually benched the Ferry Crown against
I saw
Milk.
that after this was his teammate. Yeah, I was about to say
Yeah,
the
it was
same
his
thing.
teammate. So he's sacking for Milk. So
But
they're
I-
actually trying to keep Milk a little healthier. I think he feels better about his spot than Milk's, and they just need to buy a little bit more time.
So guys, talk to me a little bit about the situation. We've got one player eliminated from Team Vitality. We've now got a disparate number of players on the field. Wolves have already targeted out one player. Will they be able to do it again to Vitality?
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can try and lock Soju up now, who is on the low HP. He just pushed to 9, did not find the big upgrades, but he did find a Recon as the next in to push to 4 Preserver. And because the Fiora is so strong, it might just be good enough. Going up against Milk to kick things off, though, who is still just carrying that Syndra too.
And we can see the third bruiser item coming in. Hysterix joining as well. So this Fiora will be very hard to put down. It does take a little while to get onto the back line, but with Nasus keeping things up, the Preservers, they're looking pretty good.
Yeah, big hit going on to Milk here, right? So even though they've been trying to keep him alive, you're talking about Cass, it is looking like Milk is slowly but surely like kind of fading out, unable to really find that way of dealing damage here. But the Dragon shows up in Milk's shop here. Do you sacrifice one of these critical pairs to potentially impair a bunch of damage on towards the enemy team?
And we see his decision is yes, absolutely, he's going to go for it. But as you can look at the health totals, all 3 Vitality players at the bottom of the tables, all 4 of the Wolves, Smell and Blood, pushing forward at the top. It's going to make it very tough for Vitality to make up for the 8th now because they just don't have the HP to hold on.
So, you know, if Soju is going to be climbing up, week for you between Milk and Toronto Tokyo, who do you think has got the best potential of climbing up and trying to battle for those top 2 spots?
I mean, we've seen this time and time again with the Multi Striker line, that if you don't have that Cassidon free, you're trying to play for that angle of it, and you have to fall back onto the Kalista. It's just not going to work here. I think that Toronto will be in a pretty bad spot here. They'll have a very hard time figuring out a way to get his way back out away from this 7th spot.
Oh boy, Milk gets hammered there as well. It's not looking good for Vitality. If this is the way that their first loss of the tournament comes together, it's looking really scary.
Yeah, it looks like it could be, you know, all 4 of them in bot 4 type of situation. Soju's spot is probably strong enough that it won't quite happen, but still having 3 players in bot 4, losing very early on in game 1 can be crushing. You heard Toronto Tokyo in the interview saying that he and Milk can kind of shake everything off, whereas Soju and Setsuko sometimes get a little bit mad, but are able to kind of push that away. I know Toronto Tokyo's background of having such strong mental. If he can have that rub off on the rest of this team and help carry them through, even just 1 loss should not shut this team down.
This is also the first bout with adversity for the entirety of the event for this Vitality team, right? They have been strolling all throughout their matches so far. 3 quick series, 2 on all of them. But it does look like they'll have their backs up against the wall here as the Wolves are trying to take them out.
Well, I kind of want to open up the question then. You know, for Vitality, they've been going 2-0, 2-0, 2-0. What have they been doing so well that maybe it hasn't been happening in this game?
I mean, one of the things is a lot of times they had kind of like 2 win-out players, 2 rerollers. This time they ended up kind of with 3 rerollers. It's not necessarily that that's wrong. I think a lot of the strategy in this game was sound, but just not finding the Galio hurts quite a bit. I actually don't know that there's much that they should change. I think they're still playing the game plan that has worked, and this time around they just could not find the pieces and put them together.
It's a kind of an absurd situation as well, but the player that hits the 3-star reroll on the opposite side of the field is also holding on to 6 copies of your most important reroll so far in that game at the point, right? So it is going to be a double elimination here of the Vitality players if we saw that correctly.
And they're done.
Yeah, that's game 1 in the books, done and dusted. Wolves picking up that one, putting 3 Vitality members in the bottom 3. Soju honestly could potentially win this game, or at least top 2, considering the spot if he can find a couple more upgrades. So we'll see him continue to ramp up that AVP in case they make the final for that MVP extra 50K.
You can see the Wolves, though, just an attitude of relaxation settling across them. Again, Vitality, they've been so ridiculously dominant. I don't think even the Wolves could have credited that this first game of the first semifinals on stream would end this abruptly.
Yeah, they're supposed to be an underdog, right? And they're coming out swinging in this first one. We talked about being able to find the first place being important in this matchup. Well, I think got to show that domination, and just every single member being so strong. Finding the Syndra for YGQF. Maybe it won't be a first place again, but the comfort zone for this player. And Lee Sao continuing to just be a rock for the team.
Yeah, definitely a really rough one for sure. But out of Vitality, they will be able to kind of just already right now start talking out what are we going to do for the next game here. We already knew also kind of a bit of a weird situation with the opening portals here. Nothing really low variance to go into as well, right? You end up giving up a lot of control when you go into something like the Overachievers as well. So that's something to keep in mind here. And then, again, Soji here, he has to kind of just play out the game, trying to figure out what the best line of approach is. And even then, the longer he stays alive in the game, the more time the team will have to kind of start talking things out and think about the next game.
No, true, absolutely. I mean, so if we're saying that from the Vitality side of things, you know, the same game plan is fine, just needs to be pulled together a little bit better. From the Wolves side of things instead, you know, what is it that's caused them to have such a great game one?
I mean, you know, you don't want to say something is just high roll because they played the whole entire game so incredibly well, right? But you know, looking for these reroll spots and finding that success is so good. We see in this game, Kassadin 3 coming through the full streak, hitting your opponents really hard, being able to deny the Gallios, very, very good. But also we're seeing the execution on the Syndra's line. You know, we were talking about that SPG coming through. The Wolves were playing it as well, right? They were playing a ton of Syndra, being able to use it really well, finding their components, and committing to just playing the tempo version, which I think is kind of the most successful way to play it. Don't rely on 3-star Syndra. Play around the 2-star, use it to find other creative boards, other different ways that you can play it with the Syndra and play for those top 4s. And I think Wolves executed that better than Vitality did in this game. We saw some more creative attempts from Vitality falling flat due to Wolves denying them. So I think Wolves sticking with that. Play around the Syndra if you find it. Don't have to get too cute with it.
And I think, again, that's the big thing to keep in mind here is that don't necessarily try to go outside the box if you don't know it is going to work here, right? And again, they try to go out of the box with the likes of that Deja Vu coming through, but it just wasn't enough here in this game because of just the nature of this 4v4 format. It is so easy to just go on and full on target those hero augment players, especially when it's such a common unit like Galio, that as you can see, it's just present on so many different boards across the entirety of the game.
Yeah, absolutely hurts. And I think that's always been one of the base parts of the 4v4, having 4 opponents who can focus in on you at any given time. I mean, we do at least get to take a little few bits and pieces towards the tail end of the game. 8 portal in place here. It felt like, you know, even if the early game hadn't gone as bad as it did for Vitality, they would have still struggled in this game.
Oh, 100%.
And even it's still 9 portal here, but again, they already know that they had that 10 portal player having the option as well in the game. So like there was a win-out player here for the Wolves already ready in case Lisa was able to kind of end up like not being able to cap out, right? So for Wolves here, they had everything coming up the right way, but again, what happens when things don't come together for the likes of this Wolves team? We've seen them face down that before plenty of times already in this series so far, but will they be able to do that in game number 2? In Vitality, they come back and they figure out how to approach this next game.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to see the bounce back, but Wolves definitely having a great strategy, right? As you said, win-out player. A lot of the successful teams in this have kind of been playing 1 or 2 win-out players, a little bit of reroll or tempo from the rest of the lobby. Shelty, of course, going to be your, you know, kind of saving grace. If he can make it to 10, he can win out with 10 portal, whereas you had Lee Sao on the reroll trying to just make sure that they're the main carry of the game and you just have this bailout. And the fact was, for Wolves, everyone found their conditions. Everyone was able to put it together. Everyone was able to make it work, and that's why we see kind of this, you know, 1 through 5 having 4 Wolves players and only 1 Vitality.
All right, we'll see once round again. Lashao and Shelty just going to spar against each other here. We'll see if Soju survives through the round. Certainly some of the stronger members here of the Wolves side just killing off a little bit of time. Again, if you dropped in late, we are in the semi-final stage a little bit later on. Of course, we'll be seeing Twisted Minds versus T1. At least in the first game of this best of 3, the Wolves will finish in the top 3. A dominating start here to the upper part of the playoffs.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 5. Very good showing from Wolves to say, hey, Vitality, you might be the favorites in the tournament, but you cannot count out the pack. Wolves coming through big. We're going to see 10 portal winning again, most likely here. The vertical being so incredibly strong. If you can find it. Only the second time I remember seeing level 10 happening with Setsuko doing it yesterday. Most of the other 10 portal games came from having a dummy or something of that nature to make it happen at level 9.
Yeah, again, it just kind of shows like it's also like so fun watching 10 portal just absolutely just like do anything. Like if you have 10 portal at 9, it's like it just does like 8k damage by itself. You barely even need the unit to do anything on your board while it goes on. So Just one of the highest caps here as well to kind of watch this unfold. And again, normally it's so you're saying 1, 2, 3. This time it's the Wolves.
Yeah, 100%. 1, 2, 3 for the Wolves. We look on the other side what Vitality kind of needs to do next time. I think the strategy overall fine, but maybe get a little less cute. Play a little bit more Syndra. See the deja vu, maybe skip it. Maybe it's just you can't go for that with how easy it is to just grief a single unit in this game mode. Try and look for the things that, hey, if it's 2-star, it's still strong enough.
Also worth noting here, going into the next game, the Wolves will be able to go for a much more flexible game plan as well on top of that. Like, they will be able to take some risk. And again, go for something crazy that we saw from Na'Vi in game number 1 yesterday with 1 Fortune and 100 Golden Quest, stuff like that here. Because if they lose one game, they have that one game banged already, and then going into that ever so important game 3.
Yeah, and we saw this happen in this game, right? Shelty taking a line going towards the 10 portal as an option because recognizing, hey, if it works, we win, we're in the lead. If it doesn't work, well, we still have a game to fall back on.
And that makes it doubly dangerous for Vitality. It would be an ignominious way to exit the competition after being completely undefeated up until this point. Remember, these teams fighting here for a place in the grand finals. Shelty and Xiao utterly relaxed at the tail end of the game. So Xiao will just get wiped out there, so Shelty can take the #1 spot. But with that, Vitality, they've got a big problem to deal with. They are under pressure.